Welcome to Nerds Amalgamated, a podcast that covers the latest events in science, pop culture, and gaming.
I'm the professor, aspiring game developer, sci-fi aficionado, and completely and undeniably a geek trying to take over the world. I'll be breaking down the news from tech to gaming.
I am the DJ, a humble nerd, a big weeb,
and a watcher from the halls of the multiverse.
Just kidding. Anyways, I'll be breaking down all things comics to movies to anime.
Join us and stay hydrated as we quench you with witty banter, unintentionally hilarious hot takes, and trivia more fun than a night at the pub, courtesy of Nerds Amalgamated. Welcome back to Nerds Amalgamated. This week we're talking about games leaving the Epic Store.
Ooh.
Yeah, there's going to be some drama there. How weed helps you lose weight, and anime as a depression treatment. So on to our first bit of drama. Have you ever used the Epic Store, DJ?
No, I haven't. I've got it. I've downloaded the setup file in my desktop. I am still contemplating on installing the Epic Game Store onto my computer.
Well, you might never have to.
Oh yeah?
Because now games that are Epic exclusive are breaking their Epic Store exclusivity deals and are releasing on other storefronts, which is absolutely wild that Epic Games has been throwing money at games developers for how long now? At least since 2020 to get them locked into their... No, it's definitely back to 2018 because the first game I remember was Metro Exodus, which launched on Steam as a pre-order and was there for about 24 hours before they signed a deal with Epic Games to publish exclusively on the Epic Games Store for it. So they then took it down from Steam, which was, to me, that was absolutely astounding that they could make a deal and backtrack on releasing on Steam like that. And I just waited until it came out on Steam to play it. I love that series, but I'm not going to use the Epic Games Store because it sucks.
Is it like the UI for it, or is it the
the UI sucks.
Oh, okay.
For a long time, they didn't even have a shopping cart in the store. And if you tried to buy multiple games at once, it would lock you out because it detected fraud.
Oh, okay.
But that's just one part of the UI that sucks. The only reason I've used it has been to claim a couple of games that were released for free on the Epic Store, and I haven't actually played any of them. And for Alan Wake 2, which I can at least understand that one being an exclusive because Epic did fund a lot of the development. It's the same deal, right, with Microsoft funding a game and having it exclusive to Xbox. That makes sense. What doesn't make sense is releasing it on another store, then taking it away and making it exclusive.
Oh, by the way, Professor, the game store started in 2018.
Okay. So anyway, the key game we're talking about this week is Lords of the Fallen 2.
Oh, okay.
It's a Dark Souls style game, a Souls-like, coming out this year, and it has been exclusive to Epic Games Store until just a few days ago when they announced that it was going to be coming out on Steam and that they were breaking exclusivity.
But the game's already... Wait, the game's already out though.
No, it's not.
Lords of the Fallen.
Lords of the Fallen 2.
Oh, right. Lord 2. Right, okay.
You need to listen.
Damn.
So it's going to be released on both Steam and Epic Games Store. Now, it's not a true comparison of whether Steam or Epic Games is better because Steam has a network effect. You've already got all your friends there, and you've already got all of your games, thousands of them in the case of some of us. But so it's not entirely a fair comparison to say it'll release and the best store will. But the fact of the matter is, they've had Epic Games Store since 2018, and they've done basically nothing to improve it. Meanwhile, they've just thrown money at exclusives and whinged about other stores having a monopoly because they do things better than them.
I think that's just sour grapes at this point.
Yeah, Tim Sweeney is big on the sour grapes.
When was he ever not big on the sour grapes? When?
I don't know. I've never really followed Epic Games. I know they were big for Unreal games back in the early 2000s, but I was never an Unreal tournament player, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what they what they did that was good to get them any sort of goodwill until Fortnite came out.
Oh yeah.
And Fortnite piggybacked on a very popular genre that was getting started. It was originally going to be an entirely different type of game. It was more of a tower defense game. But they noticed that the battle royale genre was getting big. So Fortnite came out around the time of 2016, 2017, Fortnite Battle Royale. And that was shortly after PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which was based on a mod by PlayerUnknown. And that was a few years after the Hunger Games movies were coming out.
It was just a flow. Let's just say it was just a flow-on effect from.
Yeah,
eh,
every game that could be modded was getting a Battle Royale mode.
Yeah.
Then a couple of developers decided to make a professional official Battle Royale mode. Fortnite piggybacked on that popularity. And because it was free to play, it became bigger than any other Battle Royale mode. Have you ever
So
played Fortnite?
I briefly played it. I think I played it for like 1 hour and I just went, "That's it. I'm out of here." And I just walked out and slammed it.
Yeah, I played it once because a friend wanted me to play it with them.
Yeah.
And it didn't click for me, but other battle royales have. So I'm just not a Fortnite fan. And it's gotten increasingly silly since then.
Oh yeah, the skins are getting weird. The skins are getting weirder and weirder by by the day, and and the sad part is with Fortnite, even Call of Duty's copying it. Call of Duty's copied it. I'm thankfully Battle Royale hasn't, not Battle Royale, Battlefield hasn't copied it, which I'm happy about. But yeah, it's every other game wants to copy that whole like, oh, you can buy this anime skin, or you can buy this unique Rick and Morty skin, or this celebrity skin, and play it in your game.
Celebrity skin.
Uh,
That just sounds
I know
wrong.
it's
Like,
yeah. I know.
I
Uh,
want to wear your skin.
oh fuck. But like I was watching this YouTuber by the name of Caleb Hammer, and he does like financial audits. He was auditing this lady, like looking at her financial details, and apparently this lady, she spent like $32 on Fortnite to buy this Sabrina Carpenter Fortnite skin. I'm like, Sabrina Carpenter has a Fortnite skin? Okay,
Everybody does. I think we're the only people who don't.
but back to this though. So, how much did CI Games pay to buy out the Epic exclusivity deal? Curiously.
I don't believe they've released that information, but a lot of the exclusivity deals were made for games that weren't expecting to have the biggest pull. And the reason for that was that Epic was paying enough money that a game that might not, might be marginal could be profitable on day one. So you'd be stupid not to take that deal. Epic hoped that that would drag people into using the Epic Store. But the Epic Store is so bad, nobody sticks around. Except for
But the
Fortnite kids.
uh-huh. But that deal though, that's a bit of a gamble, isn't it? Like just to see whether if your game is successful or not. That's a bit of a gamble.
No, that's taking away the gamble.
Oh,
So
okay.
you can release on Steam
Hmm.
and hope you make 1 million sales at $10. Or you can release on Epic and be given $10 million to begin with.
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't think any of the amounts were actually that high,
Hmm.
but the idea was that, yeah, you would make back your development costs on day one because Epic would basically pay for the game to be made
Okay.
in
Okay.
exchange for exclusivity on their store. And most games, that's lasted a couple of years. Alan Wake 2 hasn't come to other stores yet, and that's been out for about 3 years now.
What would be the one recent game that would trigger a bit of a shit show aside from Lords of the
I mean, can you imagine if, yeah, the most recent COD or Battlefield ended up being an exclusive?
Oh,
Because do you remember the drama about 2013 when everyone was making their own stores and EA
yeah,
made Origin and tried
yeah,
to get
yeah,
everyone to
yeah,
switch to that?
yeah. And then Bethesda had their own version. Yeah, you're right. EA had one. What was the other a battle that? No, BattleNet was older. God, there's a lot more. I remember that. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so those were painful times having so many different stores with different friends lists and yeah, there's a reason we want all of our stuff to be released on one platform. Now, that's not necessarily a good thing long term because if Steam ever goes evil, we are so screwed.
Uh-huh.
But
I am not liking that moment.
no, that's going to be a terrible moment. That will be dark times for all. But the
So
thing is, if you want to compete, you have to make a competitive product, and Epic Games don't seem to be in doing that.
so what's this dissolution mutual and amicable, or were there any tension between the two companies from the get-go?
None that I've heard of.
So now that Lords of the Fallen 2 has been announced as a simultaneous release between Steam and Epic Game Store, will we will Lord of the Fallen 2 launch on Epic Game Store first, or will it be on just Steam first?
It's simultaneous. There's no exclusivity deal, so it's simultaneous release.
Ah, okay. Yep. Yeah. Do you reckon though, because of what you said earlier with Epic Game Store struggling and with their performance and how people are not happy, not liking the store itself, do you reckon that's what forced the company of Lords to walk away?
I think so. I think they've probably done some sort of analysis and decided they can make more money going with a functional store.
Okay. Okay.
So they are still using Unreal Engine and Epic Online Services and all that for Lords of the Fallen 2, but they're not releasing it strictly on Epic Store. So Epic can still make their money. They just won't make all of the money related to this game.
So, what does this signal about the long-term viability of Epic Game Store exclusivity as a publishing model? You reckon that's a big chink in the armor?
I'm hoping it is because competition between the game stores is good. Competition between Steam and Epic Games is good because it forces Steam, would in theory push Steam to do better without having to go through the courts like we did to have to get refunds on Steam.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, in theory, having alternative stores would be a good thing. But nobody's going to use Epic Store because it's rubbish, so it's not a real competitor to Steam. And having the game available in multiple stores is also a good thing because it means that we're more likely to find discounts. We can shop around. If we don't like what one store is doing, we can shop at a different store. Yeah, do all the standard shopping things to make sure that we get the best deal and the best result as consumers.
What's interesting though is Steam. No, Epic has spent billions on exclusives, developer funding, and free games just to challenge Steam. And Steam's market share has barely moved. At some point, all of this it stops being a strategy and starts becoming a sunken cost.
Yeah, at some point, Epic is going to have to give up, but it won't be soon because they are currently making all of the money from Fortnite.
Oh yeah. Okay, does this suggest Epic's publishing arm is losing its grip on securing exclusive PC titles then?
That's what I'm hoping to see. I'd like to see, Alan Wake 2 on Steam and other stores because I also think it's actually a detriment to sales to be on the Epic Store because so many people have sworn off it because of all the problems it has and because of the shady stuff they pulled with exclusivity from Metro Exodus. I'd be really interested to know if how sales projections go compared to comparing Steam and Epic. Not that I expect anyone to give us this information easily. It's the sort of stuff that they keep very close to their chest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I and I agree with you. Like Epic Game Store, like its relevancy is kind of dying away, and it makes you wonder though. Like with Steam, all it's becoming too strong. Their dominance is very strong to the point that a well-funded exclusivity deal, it's just a it would now be seen as a liability than an opportunity, if anything.
Yeah, and Epic are well aware that Fortnite's popularity is declining and are desperately trying to force Fortnite into different molds. Like they're releasing the Fortnite Unreal editor, which lets you create new game modes inside Fortnite. There's now an official kart racer mode in.
It's for Fortnite in itself is a it's just there's too many things you can do on Fortnite. Like it used to be just like, yeah, let's just fight and let's just fight each other. And from there it's like you could attend concerts. You could do guided tours to various places in the thing.
I know a lot of Star Wars fans are really pissed off that the only place to find out the backstory of Emperor Palpatine returning in latest Star Wars movie was Fortnite.
Real wow.
Yeah, they had an announcement in Fortnite where Emperor Palpatine broadcasts a message and he's like, "I'm back!" And then at the start of the next movie, they have in the traditional Star Wars scrolling text, somehow Palpatine returned. Like,
Oh,
that's a key plot point. Why is that not in the movie?
it's like when you're reading it's like when it's like those Marvel movies, you know, like before you watch the next Avengers movie, you have to watch all this shit ton of TV series and read the comic books and all the side material before you go into this, and you're like, Really? You're using a video game?"
Yep.
Uh, I'm starting to think now as well that the Epic Game Store was never really a Steam competitor at this point. It's always a hostage negotiation dressed up as a storefront, and the developers are just finally figuring out that the ransom isn't worth paying for it.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I genuinely wonder if Alan Wake 2 would have done more sales if it had been on Steam. Because it only made like 1 million sales in a year.
Yeah.
And it was a hugely anticipated game among Alan Wake fans
Yeah, if I recall correctly, that game was nominated for one of the best games in the Game Awards last year, if I recall correctly.
a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay, yep.
It's a few
Makes
years
sense.
old now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sort of Remedy's thing. They're always getting into publishing deals because their ambition is so much bigger than their size. So they get into a publishing deal and make absolutely amazing games, but they're all locked on different stores.
Yeah.
Like even back with the first Alan Wake, they were experimenting with in-game advertising. So the torch batteries you can find are Energizer brand.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, like it's literally in the game that there's product placement on the items you pick up. And there's a chase scene, so there are TVs you can find and watch
Like the
shorts.
Oh, yeah, I remember, yeah, in the first Alan Wake, yeah, there's, like it's like the Twilight Zone, but
Yeah,
crazier.
yeah, they're Twilight Zone parodies. Or not really parodies because they're not funny. They're knockoffs of Twilight Zone, basically.
Yeah.
There's a chase sequence in the first Alan Wake, and halfway through that chase sequence, you find a TV and watch it, and it's just a straight up ad. And it's like, what is the placement of this television? Why the ad in this scene in particular?
What the hell?
Yeah, so Remedy has always been experimenting with ways to get more funding so they can make their big projects. But and their most recent effort has been to sign exclusivity with Epic Games.
So, with the Lords of the Fallen, the company behind Lords of the Fallen 2 doing this sort of deal, what does this say what does this decision tell us about the power dynamic between a mid-tier developer and platform holders right now?
Well, they obviously think they can make more money by being on multiple storefronts. So they, as far as I can tell, they think they are going to release on Steam and Epic Games and make more money than if they were just an Epic exclusive plus the Epic exclusive bonus. I'm not sure what the right term for the payment is there, but
I
the
would say
fact that
gold.
they're pulling. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say I would say it's a golden handshake deal, but that's
Yeah.
not the right term.
No, I don't think it is. I'm not sure what the right term is there. Anyway, they think they can make more money from releasing on Steam, and I think the power is on the developer's side because if Epic Games really wanted to keep them in the ecosystem, then they would be able to do so. They have all of the money, but they clearly don't care to stop CI Games from pulling not pulling, but releasing Lords of the Fallen on Steam. So I'm hoping the game is good. I haven't played Lord of the Fallen, but I'm hoping the sequel is good because I don't want to be proven wrong when it comes out and it's a rubbish game, and that's the reason Epic Games decided to let it go.
In your experience, how common are buyout clauses in game publishing term sheets, or are developers pushing for them more aggressively now?
I couldn't really tell you. I haven't dealt with publishers in my time, so
Okay. Yeah, but this sort of move just tell it raises a whole lot of question in terms of like Valve has never bought has never bought a single exclusive deal to dominate the PC gaming, and Epic has done this since 2018. So what does that say? Like,
yeah. And Valve wasn't always seen as the saviors of gaming. When they
hmm,
first released Steam in 2003, I think, with the original Counter-Strike Source, it was terribly received. Everyone hated it. So they managed to turn that around to become the biggest game store there is, and without explicitly doing anything and like anti-competitive, well, they've done anti-competitive stuff, but they've
but it's not as
hardly made it their personality. They managed to outrun all competitors.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're not perfect, not by a long shot, but they're just better than everyone else.
Yeah, and I will also say though, like Steam hasn't gotten themselves into like big fights like Epic has done. Remember Epic did with the Apple Store
Yeah,
and how
that
and
was a
how
case where everyone sucked, and
yeah.
I was glad the fight was happening, but I
hmm
didn't want either side to win.
Uh-huh. Yeah. The crazy part is like Tim Sweeney fought Apple for a 12% cut and somehow still ended up with fewer games than a 30% store. Go figure,
Yeah,
huh? So
so
what? Sorry.
let's move it along to our next topic. Move on from financial obesity to actual obesity.
Hey.
So I'm sure you've heard ridiculous health claims about cannabis.
Yep. Yeah.
Especially, I don't see it so much anymore, but especially about 15 years ago, I remember seeing people posting weed memes everywhere about how weed was going to cure cancer and save the world.
I used to remember remember the military experiments they did on marijuana, and they thought, oh, marijuana will improve your intelligence. It will give you natural highs and everything.
Yeah, I don't remember those, but I do know they tested lots of drugs on the military, so it's entirely possible that one slipped by. But anyway, weed is illegal for most uses in Australia, so I can't condone using it. But now that people have started to study it more closely, now that it's becoming legal in some countries, which I've always wondered, in the US, it's legal in some states, but illegal federally. So if you buy weed in one state and travel across state lines to another state where it's legal, is that a federal crime?
Looking at the Australian context, the American one. Um, I think it depends on whether it's licensed or not. So they,
Yes, but you're crossing the state lines, so that makes it a federal matter, where it is just blanket banned.
okay, because I just typed is weed federally legal in the US, and they said here no, weed is not federally legal in the US, though it is legal in varying capacities across the majority states. The federal government classifies cannabis under a divided system. Unlicensed slash recreational, unlicensed and recreational cannabis remains federally illegal, classified under the Controlled Substances Act, medical use, and hemp derived products.
Yeah. So, anyway, speaking of the medical use, scientists have noticed that some cannabis users have lower body weight, and lowered risk of developing type 2 diabetes compared to those who don't use cannabis, which is confusing because cannabis is stereotypically associated with the munchies.
Oh yeah.
So the University of California, Riverside have done an experiment on lab rats. They exposed obese adult mice to pure THC, which is the psychoactive compound in cannabis, in some cases, and in other cases, a whole plant extract with the same level of THC. So the mice were fed a Western style diet high in fat and sugar for 60 days, then began treatment 30 days into the diet. So the mice that were treated with cannabis showed weight loss when they began using cannabis. Well, the mice probably aren't using cannabis in the way that like 420 blaze it. They're probably being injected with cannabis extract.
Hey, you know that nursery rhyme, Three Blind Mice?
Smoked so much they went blind.
Oh, I was thinking more like they used marijuana to cope with their blindness, but okay.
So anyway, the mice that were treated with THC showed weight loss when they began the treatment. The ones that were not treated gained weight. And they also had lower body fat composition at the end of the experiment, despite similar food intake to the mice who weren't treated with cannabis. And they also noticed that mice that were treated with the whole plant extract showed improved glucose tolerance, but not the mice that were just THC. So that's really weird that if you take cannabis and get the munchies, you might still lose weight.
So okay, so does the weight loss happen because the mice eat less, move more, or is something metabolic actually changing at a cellular level?
There are metabolic changes
Hmm.
with the full plant extract, not so much with the THC extract.
So how long did the effects last? Do they persist after the treatment stopped, or does everything reverse?
This study doesn't say.
Uh,
So, yeah, there's still a lot of work to do to work out which chemicals in the weed are making actually function as a weight loss drug.
hmm.
And I wonder how much weed you would need to use in a day to get the same dose as what they gave mice.
Although
But
mind
it's
you,
an interesting alternative to some of the weight loss drugs that might actually be healthier. We don't know. We don't have the long term studies to say.
though, the mice were still eating the same amount of food, but they were losing weight. So, are we saying that cannabis compounds could essentially let you eat badly and still improve your metabolic health?
Possibly.
Although this reminds me of that you know how we people when they go to McDonald's they'll be like, I'll have like a couple of burgers, some large fries, and a sundae, and top it off with a diet coke.
Well, to be fair, they're still eating too much, probably.
Hmm.
And isn't really the healthiest food. But a Diet Coke is a good first step to reducing your calorie. People like to make jokes about how it's not going to help because you're eating free burgers or what. But it does actually mean that you're not getting calories from what you're drinking. And there is a lot of calories in a standard full sugar Coke.
Yeah, that's true. So type 2 diabetes and obesity are the most chronic. We've seen it there. It's the most chronic disease known to man, and it's also the most costly. If if a non-intoxicating cannabinoid compound could meaningfully improve glucose regulation, what could this mean for treatment pipelines?
Well, it would be an alternative to something like Ozempic, which is a great medicine if you are morbidly obese and need to lose weight and improve your health, resolve some other issues. But it can have some side effects that are pretty nasty.
Oh yeah, yeah. If I recall correctly, when Ozempic came out, I remember a story where some woman took Ozempic, and for the rest of her life, she had to go. She basically had to go to the toilet for number two for the rest of her life, like continuously. And I'm going, damn, that would be painful.
Yeah, and some people end up completely constipated and unable to digest food properly. It just doesn't move through their digestive system.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's possible that a non psychoactive form of cannabis would be safer than Ozempic, but that's what we need the long term studies to find out. And also whether the munchies cause you to have other detrimental things like your intake of sugar. Do the munchies cause you to eat more sugary foods rather than more fatty food or other ultra processed foods that are not necessarily the best for you? So I
The other
think they need to do more studies.
What's also since we were mentioning Ozempic, what's interesting is Ozempic they made billions of dollars by targeting a single metabolic pathway. If the cannabis extract hits multiple pathways simultaneously, are the pharmaceutical companies quite becoming quietly terrified of what this research could do to their due to the pharmacy's bottom line?
Possibly. I believe it's more complicated to patent a medicine based on a naturally occurring plant, or at least that's how the conspiracy theorists put it. But also, you want non psychoactive cannabis because you don't, if you're taking a medicine to help you lose weight, you don't want to be spending all day, every day lying on the couch because you're high and you're not going to do anything.
Yep. With Ozempic, it's been lauded by mainstream by the mainstream as this miracle drug for obesity and diabetes. Would it be interesting if a plant extract shows comparable mechanisms in mice and you don't hear anything from mainstream medicine about this? Like that silence will be very telling.
No, I think it'll only be telling if they do the extra studies that need. Because right now, this is one study that is fairly basic and doesn't tell exactly what's happening and doesn't explain how the active ingredients are doing what they're doing
Yeah.
and any long-term effects.
And another thing you have to also wonder is while we were talking about Ozempic and the drugs, I think we also need to look into the Western diet as well and how the mice that were fed with the Western diet are treated with cannabis extract and had their metabolic health normalized. It would call into question that this diet is literally killing millions of people annually, and we may have the answer on the under our noses the entire time.
Yeah, but would you rather eat a Western diet and like have McDonald's every day and smoke some weed to stop yourself getting fat?
Hmm.
Or would you rather not have the Western diet? Because I doubt the weed is going to do anything for the massive amounts of salt in your macas.
Yeah, yeah. Although that said, though, imagine if you're a doctor and a patient comes to you tomorrow and said, "I'm obese and diabetic, and I want to start using that cannabis extract based on your research." What would you actually tell them, honestly, off the record?
Well, I'm not a doctor and
I
I
know,
don't have any patients.
but okay, in the infinite
Uh,
halls of the multiverse, then, if that's the
I
case.
think like it's I think it's something that can only be recommended if you are not if you can afford the time to sit around doing that because we know the stereotype of your average just lying around on the couch not doing it. So I think it would have to be recommended on a case by case basis and also without knowing the long term effects I can tell you that smoking is not good. So yeah, it's
So you would say like, no, don't do it off the
I think
record.
so. Because the side effects of Ozempic are pretty well understood at this point.
Yeah.
And because Ozempic forces you to improve or it doesn't force you to improve your diet entirely, but it interacts on a particular level that means you can't eat as much and you're more likely to make healthy choices because it also they're investigating it for a treatment for addiction. So yeah, we don't know yet whether the weed will have a similar effect. But speaking of doctors, how about you tell us how anime can treat your depression?
I love this segue. So while I was enjoying enjoying the Crunchyroll Anime Awards, by the way, that came out on the weekend, and the results were interesting. I came across this very interesting article about study at Yokohama City University, which was a 6-month pilot study, mind you, exploring whether anime-style therapy could help treat depression in young people. The study was led by a researcher who credited manga and anime with being important emotional support tools in his own life, and is now trialing whether they could be used as a therapeutic method, particularly for people who would otherwise struggle to seek help. Now, the trial recruited 20 people aged from 18 to 29 with symptoms of depression, providing them with online counseling from a psychologist who appeared on screen as an anime avatar with a digitally altered voice.
Oh no. We've got VTuber psychologist before GTA 6.
But mind you, the six characters six characters were created separately for the study, each based on different archetype from Japanese manga, ranging from steady, trustworthy maternal energy figure to an emotionally perceptive prince-like male. Participants were free to choose among them. The lead researcher believed that the thriller of
Okay,
fantasy.
but where is the cat go? I don't make the
Hmm.
rules.
I hope there was a cat girl in it.
DJ-san, take your tablets!
Ew, no, no, don't do it. No, no, don't do it. Please don't do it. That's just coming from you is just wrong. Stop. Now I need marijuana to get that out of my mind. The results of this, a phase one trial tracked heart rates and sleep and designed to test the belief anime therapy. The researchers were also considering whether the approach could eventually be delivered by AI rather than a real psychologist. Oh, that's going to be fun. That'll make it
Oh
better.
no. Oh no. This just keeps getting worse.
Yeah. The study sits within a broader mental health challenge in Japan. Researchers are trying to address ikisuarasa, a Japanese term for people who find it difficult to live or survive in society, noting that many young people cannot attend school or hold down work, and that remains there remains significant stigma around seeking mental health support. As of 2022, only 6% of people in Japan that use psychological counseling for mental health problems. That is staggering. 6% of people in Japan use counseling for mental health problems.
But they don't have time. Have you seen how they work over there?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There is an interest. I was reading reading these articles, and some of the quotes are interesting. Like lead researcher for this, Francesco Panto, said this: being raised in Italy, in Sicily, there were very strong stereotypes around gender or self-expression. But when I was 12 or 13 years old, I started to play this game called Final Fantasy, and the male protagonists resonated with me. They were so masculine and cool, but in their own way.
Which Final Fantasy though? Because
Oh,
that could be a lot of different things.
uh-huh. I mean, I'm gonna guess the famous one, number 7, but then, like you said, you're right. There are too many of them. But according to Miho Ishii, she quote the assistant professor on this one. The quote about he or she quoted about the Japan's mental health gap. There are many young people who cannot go to school or continue working, so our scope is to give them new choices to recover from difficult, because usually people have stigmas and psychological barriers to ask for help about their mental health, but anime or technology could decrease them. So that's interesting.
I don't know, maybe I'm not enough of a weak, but I feel like talking to a real psychologist is going to do better than talking to an AI anime face.
Yeah, you reckon there is a risk that people become more attached to the anime avatar than a real therapist? Like, could that attachment itself be a problem?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And could you imagine this working outside Japan, like where anime isn't really culturally embedded? Like
I'm
imagine
just
an
imagining some boomer who doesn't know what the animes are, going in for their first psychological appointment and
oh
being
no.
met by a cat girl.
No! You're gonna give him colorful nightmares, aren't you, Professor? Okay, say if anime therapy works, you reckon this will embarrass the psychological establishment? And would they ever admit it?
No, I don't think it would be embarrassing. I think it would just be an alternative treatment. There's already a lot of different treatment methods in psychology, and some of them work better for different people.
Yeah,
So
but
if
yeah,
it
but there's
works, it's probably a good thing and will get used.
Okay, that's true. But then you and I have seen, like, whenever something comes out new, it always at the at the initial stages, it always gets like shut down. It always gets talked down, going like, "Nah, it will not work. It was a joke." Blah blah blah. You know what I mean? and then all of a sudden it works, and we go, oh, what? Okay, time to eat crow. This does actually work.
That happens in every field.
And another thing you've also said, like how with Japan, how it's got the massive stress levels and high suicide rates in developed world. Is this therapy a genuine innovation or a distraction from systemic failures in the mental health funding and policy?
That's a tough question I don't feel qualified to answer.
Yeah, that's fair. Although now when although now when you also think about it with how we always get laughed at when we say like, oh, we watch anime, and it's like, ooh, anime, ooh, that's terrible. Like, imagine anime therapy gets dismissed. It'll be like dismissing like art therapy or music therapy. So it also makes you wonder, like, at what point does skepticism becomes cultural bias dressed up as scientific rigor?
I don't know. It's definitely at some point.
Yeah. Although it would be fun though. Imagine if your therapist shows up as a Final Fantasy character. Would you actually open up more, or would you just want to talk about the game?
I would probably be very confused.
Okay. How about in your field, like in your world? Like, let's say if it comes out as a character from Stalker.
Ah, Tovarish, take your tablets. My Russian accent's not any better than my catgirl accent.
But let's say, for example, like if a character from Stalker was to come to you, would you open up more, or would you just talk about the game?
I'd probably not open up more. I don't think I'd talk about the game,
No,
but I think I would not open up to a game character trying to talk to me about my mental state.
because it's interesting. This psychologist use Final Fantasy as a stepping point to go. Hey, maybe it work.
Yeah, but also the way he describes playing Final Fantasy and having an epiphany over this character who is representing, I've forgotten the exact words, but say you played Final Fantasy and thought that a character had an interesting representation of masculinity. Well, that's more of a role model than a therapist.
I guess. I mean, okay. You could. I was gonna say like like you could look as a father figure, as a therapist in a way, as well as a role model in a manner of speaking.
No, I think they're two different fields. A role model is someone you aspire to be. A therapist is someone who gives you the tools to help you be the best version of yourself.
And that's also interesting. Like the researcher designed the characters with their own mental health struggle. Do you think the patients are connecting with the therapist or the character, or does that distinction matter clinically?
I don't know. Getting into depths I'm not well acquainted with.
That's fair. Although you know how they were saying earlier, this we're gonna try AI. You're gonna insert AI into this therapy. Could AI delivered anime therapy scale globally? And what are the risks that of removing the human psychology equation entail?
Well, the big risk is that if they use an LLM to do it,
Hmm.
LLMs are really bad at doing therapy, and they tend to tell you whatever you want to hear and then encourage you to do it. So if you talk to an LLM and it told you, hey, jumping off a bridge is a really great idea, you should do it.
Oh yeah, I remember ChatGPT got on the fire for that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I
yeah, yeah.
don't think AI therapists, whether they're anime or not, are good.
Yeah, there was yeah. It's but that said though, some people might find it uncomfortable with the therapy though. Like having a human face could sometimes be a barrier to having a human face of a therapist might be a barrier to some people.
It could be. And I don't know what to say to those people. But I don't think AI is the way to go.
But let's say hypothetically, if an AI anime therapist proves just as effective as a human one, what does this say about the nature of the therapeutic relationship? And should that terrify us or excite us?
It should terrify us because if an AI therapist is as good as a real therapist, that means the singularities occurred.
Oh damn! Oh damn! Then it becomes then it does then it won't be a future concern. It'll just be it'll be inevitable.
Yep.
Although, and the mental health profession to decide whether it wants to shape that future or be replaced by it. Yeah, What's ultimately scary is that we've built a society so emotionally hostile that people need a cartoon to feel safe enough to cry. That's scary.
Yeah,
That's just really sad, man. About it.
yes.
Yeah.
The world
Oh,
should not suck that much.
and what's gonna be even worse is, can you imagine the cape wearing anime prince has a better patient retention rate than your GP?
Yeah, no.
It would
Let's
be.
move on.
Yep.
On to our shoutouts. On the 18th of May 2026, Tom Kane passed away at 64. Tom Kane was the voice actor who played Yoda in Star Wars The Clone Wars and Professor Utonium on the Powerpuff Girls. He died from complications of a stroke. He also did the voice of Woodhouse on Archer
Yeah,
after George Coe died,
yeah, I remember that. He was also
and
the
Darwin from the Wild Thornberrys.
yeah, and Lord Monkey Fist from Kim Possible. Man, he was such a good voice.
And on the 20th of May 2019, the International System of Units, or SI, redefined the base units so that the international prototype of the kilogram was obsolete. So originally, the kilogram was defined by a weight. They had a kilogram of a weight, steel or something, and all other kilograms were in reference to that weight. Adam Savage did a video a few years ago making a international prototype kilogram replica, which was pretty cool. It's a really cool artifact, but they were running into problems like the weight of that kilogram was changing. So in 2019, 4 of the 7 SI base units specified in the International System of Quantities were redefined in terms of natural physical constants. So that means that, for example, a kilogram is related to the mass equivalent of the energy of a photon at a specific frequency.
Huh. Did they say what's the C like? Was it just a undescribable frequency?
The kilogram, so an equivalent definition from. Okay, so this is complicated stuff, but the previous definition of the kilogram was that it was equal to the mass of the international prototype. So you had a weight that weighed 1 kilogram, and everyone agreed that was 1 kilogram, and all other kilograms were created in reference to that kilogram.
Makes sense.
Then they changed it so that it was the fixed numerical value of the Planck constant h to be 6.62607,015 times 10 to the power of negative 34 when expressed in the unit joules a second, which is equal to kilograms multiplied by meters squared multiplied by s to the power of -1, so seconds, where the meter and second are defined in terms of C and delta V CS.
Wow.
Yeah. So when it comes down to it, a lot of these units, I'm pretty sure the base unit for SI is actually the speed of light, but
Makes
I
sense.
don't quote me on. But everything else is derived from the speed of light.
I am
So
also sorry.
an alternative definition of the kilogram is that the kilogram is the mass of a body at rest whose equivalent energy equals the energy of a collection of photons whose frequencies sum to 1.35639248965 times 10 to the power of 50 hertz. So very, very high frequency.
I am curious to ask though, with these weights of a kilogram, is it also dependent on, let's say, where you're located? Like if it's, let's say, 1 kilogram above sea level, and then below sea level will be like 999 point like 999 grams kind of thing, or is it?
Well, yes, if you were talking about the international prototype, that is one of the advantages of the new measurement system. It's no longer defined based on an object created by humans, it's based on defined constants of the universe. So it doesn't matter where you go or what you do, the speed of light will always be the speed of light in a vacuum. The meter will always be a particular fraction of a light second, and so on. So, are you going to add anything there?
Oh no, nothing else.
Okay. So on the 22nd of May, we passed the 25th anniversary of the Red Faction series. The first release in 2001 was a story about the working people of Mars fighting for independence from off-world oppressors. And the very first game had a really interesting gimmick which is that everything was destructible. So you could
Yeah,
blow holes in the ground and dig holes.
that was a fun game.
Yeah, it was. I think the most popular was Red Faction Guerrilla, which
Oh
was
yeah.
you had a big sledgehammer and could knock down any you wanted.
Oh, not just that. You could once you progress the game further, you get the railgun and you could just shoot that thing from a distance like a sniper rifle and just destroy buildings from a distance.
Yeah.
But Red Faction 1, that in itself was a classic game. And then if I recall correctly, after that engine came out, like Battlefield used that as well, didn't they, for their destructible elements?
Oh, I had no idea.
I think so, but I could be wrong. Oh no,
It's not anywhere in the notes you've given me.
no, I was just guessing. Maybe that's how the Geo mod engine evolved.
No, Battlefield was based on Frostbite.
Ah. By
I
the way, when you
think that was the case anyway.
Yeah. By the way, with the first Red Faction game, did you ever finish the game?
No, I haven't.
Ah, that was that was an interesting game. Though I'll say this, the endings were very confusing at the end.
Okay, I'll have to get back to it.
Yep.
And what is our messed up moment this week?
Oh boy. So I decided since the new Star Wars movie has arrived after 7 years of not being in the cinema with the Mandalorian Grogu, I've decided to put a Star Wars theme to this one. And it was when The Force Awakened happened, and while they were filming that, while they were filming a certain scene, a hydraulic door malfunctioned during filming of it, and it crushed Harrison Ford. Not literally, but he survived. But it left him with a dislocated ankle, a broken left leg, and a fractured pelvis.
Yeah, that's not good at his age. That's not good at
Yeah.
any age.
Uh-huh. It happened on June 12th, 2014 at Pinewood Studios. A heavy metal frame hydraulic door in the Millennium Falcon set unexpectedly closed. Stuck with the force compared to to the weight of a small car, the then 71-year-old Ford was knocked to the floor and pinned, resulting with those injuries. He was airlifted to a hospital in Oxford for surgery. The incident resulted in a health and safety executive investigation. In 2016, Foodles Production UK Limited, a Disney subsidiary, pleaded guilty to 2 breaches of health and safety laws and was fined £1.6 million. But yeah, that's messed up. Like,
And our wacky movie this week is Nightlife of the Gods, releasing on the 20th of May 1935 in Sweden. Directed by Lowell Sherman, based on a story by Fawn Smith and Barry Travers, it starred Alan Mowbray, Florian McKinney, Peggy Shannon, and others. A scientist invents a device that can turn flesh to stone. While celebrating his discovery, he becomes involved with a leprechaun. The scientist and leprechaun go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York and turn all the statues of Greek gods into people. What follows is a drunken romp around New York with Medusa's severed head still in Perseus's hand.
can you imagine being a traffic cop and you pull these guys over and you're like, uh, what would be your first reaction? You see Hercules in the car with Perseus and Zeus.
I'd assume they were going to a costume party.
Honestly, this plot just reminds you of Night at the Museum.
Yeah.
Only except it didn't involve it didn't involve just Greek gods, and Night at the Museum was just everything in the museum.
Yes. It also turns out that because of the Hays Code, the sexual humor was minimized, and the film was believed to be lost until a print turned up in the 1980s.
Yeah, and the ending of that thing was also changed as well, if I recall correctly.
Yes, but that's a spoiler, so I'm not going to mention it.
Fair enough. And even the forward to this movie is hilarious as well.
And that forward would be once upon a time, a famous author named Fawn Smith wrote a book conceived in a moment of delirium and written in a cuckoo. The first chapters convinced us he was crazy. The ensuing left no doubt that possibly we were. So we leave you to enjoy this new and completely mad type of whimsical humour on the screen. Stop rattling cellophane, take Sonny's shoes off, park your gum under the seat where it belongs, and let's all go crazy together.
I bet you money Frank Herbert would have would have wrote something similar in his June books.
No, there's no theatre scenes in June.
I know, but then he would have gone, yes, Frank Herbert wrote this book and he conceived this in a moment of delirium. The first few books were convinced us he was crazy. The last few books, we were crazy.
Actually, it reminds me more of Douglas Adams,
Yeah?
who apparently conceived of the idea of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy while lying drunk in a ditch.
Wow, okay.
So, that's all we have for you this week. Look after yourself, stay hydrated, and we'll see you next time.
Check out our Instagram, also on Spotify. Check out our YouTube channel. We also have a lovely Discord community going around. The links will be all on our show notes. We also have our Twitch streams as well on every Friday, so 6:30 p.m., where we have madcapped adventures, especially in a game called Misery, which we're having a lot of laughs. But stay happy, stay nerdy. See you guys.
Yeah.